More statistics ahead on the program. I can confirm it is 6 minutes past 10. They are numbers that you can trust. These are numbers that you can trust too. There are 30 West Australians who suffer from a cystic fibrosis mutation called G551D. You might have seen the picture on the front page of the West today, Kathy O'Leary telling the story of 2-year-old Alia, who has the gene mutation and struggles each day to clear her lungs. There is a drug that could make her life so much easier, but it would cost her family a staggering $250,000 a year. The Pharmaceutical Advisory Council will this month make a recommendation to Cabinet as to whether the drug should be subsidised and listed on the PBS. Nigel Barker is the Chief Executive of Cystic Fibrosis WA, and we thought we'd speak to Nigel to learn more about this drug. Nigel, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Tell us about it, Nigel.
Well, look, this is a very exciting breakthrough for cystic fibrosis. It's something which is called a small molecule, and it's the very first of a whole new class of drugs which attacks the underlying cause of the disease rather than the symptoms. For Kalydeco, it actually provides benefit for around about 8% of those people who have cystic fibrosis, and as you said, that represents about 30 people here in Western Australia. The cystic fibrosis itself is a genetic disease. You can't catch it, and that's one of the first questions that we're asked. And, of course, it creates enormous demands, not on the person living with the disease, but their family and carers as well.
Okay, so there's going to be a lot of future value in this drug because, as you say, it looks at the causes of the disease. What kind of benefits does it offer sufferers, and particularly those with this very specific gene mutation?
Well, typically, a day in the life of someone with cystic fibrosis starts very early in the morning. I'm sure you're used to that. And this begins with airway clearance, so physiotherapy and nebulization. And then, because cystic fibrosis actually attacks every organ in the body, it primarily manifests itself in the lungs, but it means that you have to take enzymes as well to help with digestion. So every meal is accompanied by a fistful of tablets to help break down the fats and the proteins that our kids need to live a healthy life.
Now, this little girl who features on the front page of the West today, what benefit would access to this drug bring for someone of her age?
Well, I can only really speak about the benefit that people taking the drug now have experienced that have been on the clinical trial for Kalydeco. And for them, for certain individuals, they've moved from taking up to 40 enzyme tablets a day, nebulized antibiotics and airway clearance techniques, to taking 2 tablets a day, 1 tablet in the morning, 1 tablet in the evening. Their lung function has improved dramatically. It's been miraculous. One of the people has said to me, look, Nigel, before I took this drug, I had a lung function of 40, FEV40, which is a way that we measure the efficiency of the lungs.
Yes.
You and I would probably be about 100, unless, of course, you smoke, in which case you might be a little bit less than that. It's just meant that now my lung function is back up to normal. It's exceeded 100. I don't take any enzymes with my food. I don't have to have airway clearance. I don't have to nebulize antibiotics all the time, which is a considerable period of time out of my day. But more importantly than that, I feel as though I've got hope for the future. I've got plans to have a family, plans to have children, plans to live a normal life.
Not only does it make people with cystic fibrosis breathe more easily, it sounds as if it frees people with cystic fibrosis of many of the constraints and limitations that the condition places on them.
That's exactly right. And often we have new drugs coming onto the market, and for some people they say, oh yes, it works for me. Other people say, well, you know, I didn't really notice any great difference. But with this drug, everybody that's been on it has said, yeah, look, it's been great for me. It's really changed my life.
Okay, you're listening to Nigel Barker, the Chief Executive for Cystic Fibrosis WA, telling us about a drug that really could change the lives of the Australians and West Australians who have cystic fibrosis. But then there's the cost, Nigel, and this is the bit, I guess, that people don't understand and can't understand when we talk about the story of this 2-year-old girl, Alia. If she was to go on this drug, at this point in time, it costs $20,000 a month. How can that be?
Well, it's a question that we actually asked the pharmaceutical company that has developed this drug. We said, why is it so expensive? And they give a reply which is difficult to swallow, but it is easy to understand. And they say, well, for every drug that makes it through to the market, there are hundreds of drugs that don't. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars to bring a drug to market these days, and hundreds of millions of dollars to take a drug up to phase 3 clinical trials, only to find that it's not effective, or it has unwarranted side effects, and so they have to ditch that process and start all over again.
Is there validity there? And I wonder, because we are talking about a very, very specific drug which will be able to help a small group of people, no matter how important this drug is to them. If pharmaceutical companies are talking about volumes and dollars and profits and things, is there validity to their argument? Say no if you want to.
Look, I understand their argument, but it's very difficult for me to understand how a drug could be valued at $250,000 a year, and I find that really, really difficult to come to terms with. The thing is that for rare diseases, the big pharmaceutical companies tend not to invest an awful lot of time and effort in developing drugs for them, because the market is so small. But this particular drug has been, the development of this drug has been funded in the United States through public donations through the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in the USA. So it's ordinary people have actually made a difference by banding together to address an intractable problem which has a devastating effect on people living with CF.
Can they do it because even with a comparatively small amount of sufferers, there is critical mass in the United States that enables them to do it?
I think it's more a case of us as a community reducing the risk or mitigating the risk of failure for the big pharmaceutical companies. So we say, well, look, we can help fund this drug development, and if it fails, well, the loss isn't as big as you might otherwise incur.
Okay, the question now is whether or not government is prepared to subsidise a drug like this and have it listed. Would I be right in saying that there would be other very, very specific drugs, perhaps in areas of cancer treatment too, that are extremely expensive and which you unwittingly and unfortunately are competing against to win that place and that subsidy?
Well, there isn't a bottomless bucket of money available, and the PBAC, the Pharmaceutical Advisory Benefits Committee, which it's currently before for consideration at the moment, has a choice. They can either recommend it for listing on the PBS, in which case it becomes available to everyone at a subsidised rate, or they can actually say, no, it doesn't work. We know that isn't true, so that's unlikely. Or they can actually advise that it be funded through the life-saving drug scheme. So there are a couple of avenues open to us right now, but the decision is very much a political decision because it's made in Cabinet. Now, the recent changes to Cabinet, we're not quite sure where that decision is going to go, but at the end of this month we hope to have some really, really good news. Okay,
and if there isn't that really, really good news, I mean, do people like Alia and her parents, what do they do? Do they mortgage their homes so they can get access to this drug? The prospect of their little girl breathing easier and more comfortably, it's something that parents would just seek to do. If you don't get that kind of support via the PBS, are they the stories that we will be telling of people who basically spend everything on trying to give their kids this better opportunity?
People are already doing that.
I don't doubt it.
So it's a huge financial impost. Some people can't afford to do it and they're losing everything. Other people have a financial capacity to do it, but they're very, very rare.
Yeah.
Now, the availability of Kalydeco was actually knocked back in Scotland, and it was a matter of weeks before public pressure and families and children going and standing on the steps of Parliament actually persuaded the Scottish Government to reverse their decision.
Nigel, we'll stay in touch and we'll watch and see what Cabinet determines. It must be a very, very difficult situation to be in. Not an easy situation to be a politician in either. I appreciate your explanation today. Thank you very much.
And thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everyone, particularly here in Western Australia, that has supported Cystic Fibrosis WA. We've got big plans, and we're getting there, and we can't do it without them.
Really good to talk to you, Nigel. Thank you very much. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Cystic Fibrosis WA. What a difficult circumstance. What do